Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell the truth about silver. Today is Thursday, the 28th of April, 2022. And we're looking at the price of gold and silver and equity markets. And we see that the dollar index has risen quite substantially, which, as a result, have caused both gold and silver prices to fall. Do we have further to go? We suspect so. Why? Well, let's take a look. Headlines today, quite interesting. Germany closer to backing EU push to sanction Russia's Sberbank. We said in our weekly update, Russia and Ukraine are going to dominate the headlines this week, and so far, it's exactly what's been going on. Europe's price peak very close, says ECB's Guindos. Bonds pounded by inflation concerns get a lift from inflation. We'll have a quick look at that for just a moment. And the Swedish economy contracts as price hikes start to bite. And we're seeing, obviously, throughout the whole of the world, inflation broadly rising. EU's fastest inflation soars on food and energy costs. Looking briefly at bonds, we can see as inflation fears surge, holders of US government debt are having a rough ride. Investors have abandoned the market en masse, making the first quarter the worst on record and devastating the value of bond portfolios. But now fixed income returns are starting to get a lift from that same boogeyman, with the Federal Reserve battling inflation by raising rates and signalling more hikes to come. Prices of bonds have fallen, and when the price of a bond falls, its yield, the return investors expect to get from holding it, goes up. So in mid-April, for the first time in 2 years, yields on some government debt that's adjusted for inflation began to fully offset the toll of rising prices, albeit briefly. Bonds and credit both look a lot more attractive now, says Raymond Lee, Chief Investment Officer at Torika Capital in Sydney. Also good news perhaps for the equity markets. Meta shares soar as Facebook returns to user growth. And this is really updated just a couple hours ago. Shares of Facebook parent company Meta Platforms Inc. surged during pre-market hours on Thursday, a day after reporting its main platform added more users than projected in the first quarter, potentially staving off concerns that the company is losing momentum as a new generation flock to younger sites like TikTok. The stocks gained as much as 19% during pre-market trading. And we can see that Meta yesterday reported 1.96 billion daily users on Facebook. So let's hurtle over to the equity markets. Yesterday, there was a little bit of positive relief for the equity markets in America because they were down so considerably so far this week. But we had a very marginal rise of, on average, 0.2%. Asia Pacific overnight between 1.75% and 2%. And currently in the UK and Europe, we have markets up somewhere between 1 and 1.5%. However, the gold price is not performing well. Now, we did predict in our weekly update to expect lower prices this week, and this, quite frankly, is what we've got. And in fact, today alone, gold price is down $15 over the last 24 hours, that is, and it's currently standing at $1,889. Now, if we consider that at Friday's close gold was $1,933, we are down some $44 on that close. So it's been a rough time for precious metals, but as one could envisage it, because on May the 5th, next week, a week today in fact, the Federal Reserve, or the FOMC of the Federal Reserve, will be announcing an interest rate hike. Some are predicting 0.25%, others are predicting 0.5%, with a lot more still to come. So we shouldn't be surprised to see at least short-term precious metals under pressure. We must also not forget the fact that eventually, we don't know when, but eventually the Ukraine-Russia debacle will end. And if it's positive, then the risk premium again in gold and silver will also be affected, causing the price to fall further. With Putin talking about the potential of nuclear war, well, of course, that will keep prices supported. On the silver front, bad news for silver holders, unless you wish to buy, of course. Silver's down 51 cents today at 23.17. Again, last Friday, silver closed at 24.17, so we're $1 down on that close. Energy markets, we can see the price of oil broadly holding, with WTI crude at 101 and Brent crude at $104.78. Crypto market taking a bit of a hit, but today is up 1%. May go up further when the US markets open, we suspect, but cryptocurrencies are under pressure, as is the Nasdaq. Whatever the Nasdaq does, broadly speaking, that's what happens to crypto. And finally, as far as the dollar index is concerned, it's even risen higher than we forecast. We said on Saturday, do not be surprised to see the dollar index at 102. We thought personally it might go as high as 102.5. Well, even our rather bullish forecast on the dollar has been surpassed, and we can see the dollar is currently standing at 103.7. Woe betide those who were predicting lower dollar values. The irony is, of course, as we still approach May the 5th, it could go even higher. Much higher remains to be seen. We suspect 105, and it will cap out if it does get that high. To be candid, it's already at a level that's a little bit too high for comfort, realistically. But that said, it can go further. Now, finally, before we actually go, let's have a look at the economic news that's been announced this week. There was nothing scheduled on Monday. On Tuesday, durable goods orders came in broadly as expected. The core capital equipment orders was slightly up for March at 1% compared with minus 0.3 in February. The home price index year over year just a little bit higher than previously. Consumer confidence index similar to the previous month, in fact, but marginally down on expectations, and new home sales marginally down on expectations. Yesterday we had pending home sales index that was a minus 1.8, and today we're expecting to see obviously the initial and continuing jobless claims and real gross domestic product. But it's tomorrow that all eyes and attention will be placed, where we've got the PCE price index, the core price index, disposable income and consumer spending. That's the day the biggest changes are taking place, but of course markets may respond to that in anticipation, and then will either react positively or negatively depending on how those figures come out then tomorrow. So we suspect there'll be quite a reasonable price movement in gold and silver tomorrow, unless of course it's taken in advance, but then may self-correct once the news is known. That's it for now. Please tune in to our update on Saturday. Our forecasts so far have been pretty much on the ball, and we earnestly recommend that you listen to those. It's still not worth doing a video a day for the simple reason the news is not that exciting, in fairness, and you can only look at these prices so many times in a week without becoming fatigued. That said, we've got some interesting things coming up very shortly for May, but we'll announce those in the days ahead. Thank you so much for listening. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, press the bell sign. Until the weekend. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.